May the road rise up to meet you, and the wind be on your back. May the sun shine warm upon you, and the rain fall gently down.
Hello, welcome back. Today we're at week 33 of the series, and that will cover days 217 to 223. Or if you have the addition of the road rising that follows the calendar, then you'd be looking at August 5th to August 11th. Before we go into the events of these days, I have a confession to make. Writing about this part of the journey was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I told my wife at one point in tears, it was like eating razor blades. The reason for the difficulty is that this story is not just fiction. It's based on a real account about a time when I descended into a valley of my own. Only by God's grace was able to come out on the other side. Even now, the scars are still there, and like a wound that's been scabbed over, still threaten to bleed if I spend too much time with him. But this is a defining moment in the life of the pilgrim, and I have to include it. So I covet your prayers for me as I recall my own experience, and by association, the experience of a friend and his son. God, of course, is not bound by time, and so the prayers you lift up now will be applied to me today, before the fact. Thank you. Remember that friend has decided to pursue ministry as a full-time career, to be a part of the rendezvous team, enabling fellow pilgrims in their own faith work, worshiping, training, fellowshipping, growing. He shared his decision with Pastor McAllen, who affirms the pilgrim, but reminds him that such a commitment will get the attention of the enemy. Prepare yourself, he cautions, for struggles like you've never known before. Friend gives a nervous laugh and asks, well, what could be worse than being mauled by a lion? He's about to find out. Let me read from his journal for August 5th, day 217. As Pastor McAllen and I prayed together in the middle of the meadow, my thoughts were conflicted. On the one hand, I felt a wonderful joy at knowing that my decision to go into full-time ministry had been confirmed. At the same time, though, I was troubled by the pastor's warning that I was to prepare for more suffering. Was this a definite prediction of things to come, or simply a way to get my guard up so that I could avoid coming problems? Was the suffering he spoke of a direct result of my decision to enter the ministry? And if it was, then did I have the option to change my mind, ignore the calling, and thereby avoid the suffering? I tried to imagine worst-case scenarios. Let's say another one of those big demons from hell comes at me with a sword, only this time I'm defenseless. Would I be willing to stand there and take whatever he gives me if it meant that I would honor God by doing so? That sounded like a tough one, but then I started considering the alternative. The demon comes at me. I say, hey, I'm not the guy you're looking for. I'm just minding my own business. He stops, goes away. I'm left unhurt, but with a lifetime of regret that I denied God. Which form of suffering is worse? It was really no contest in the end. I knew that I could not and would not step back from what I knew God wanted me to do. If he chooses to send me into battle with a toothpick, then so be it. I'm his man. Pastor McAllen and I finished praying and started back into camp. I felt good about the morning. My decision had been made, confirmed, and now I was dedicated to seeing it through. It was a great moment. The moment quickly passed when Hank came running out to meet us on the meadow. He was breathing hard and looked frightened. He stood in front of us for a moment and then said, "It's your son." You've seen the movies, right? The evil beast has our hero in his grasp, intent on his destruction. The hero looks up through his pain and says, "Do your worst, you vile offender. You'll get nothing from me." Well, the beast sneers and says, "I thought as much, but perhaps this will change your tune." Enter our heroine, chained and crying. There's not a hero on earth who would not cave in to such pressure. It's a sobering thought, I believe, to realize that your commitment to God does not always affect you personally, but rather those you love. On the mission field, whenever any of our children would get hurt or have a bad day, my wife and I could not help but ask ourselves, was the call to serve for us only? Or did it include our kids? Must they suffer for our decisions? Rather than try to tie this conundrum up into a neat package today, I want to ask you to think about, pray about it, and consider long and hard the ramifications of any choice you make concerning your obedience to God. The answer may sound simple, but there will always be aspects of it that will blindside you. I pray for you this week. You pray for me. And then when we come together again, let's see if we can have a firm answer in hand. Until then, may God bless your days with His protection, His mercy, His leading. Y'all come back now, here. Ever there was a day when I did not want to see the sunrise. This was it. How could I leave this place of peace and joy and take my son away to a mountaintop in order to watch him die?